Hi, my name is Jonathan Veet. I'm with Clemson Public Service and Agriculture, and I'm at the South Carolina Water Resources Conference in Columbia, South Carolina. The conference has brought together water researchers and policymakers from across the state, federal, state, and university-wide. And I'm with Dr. Cal Sawyer, who is an extension hydrologist at Clemson University. Cal, my understanding is you're leading a survey to understand agricultural water use across the state. Could you tell us a little bit about that survey and what its goal is?
The survey genesis started about a year ago. There was a lot of public interest. There was a lot of interest from the producers and growers in the state, and there was a growing interest from the General Assembly and the media in agricultural water use. There are new regulations that are being proposed for a large part of the state, and so we wanted to be able to look at the volume of agricultural water use, but also be able to collect some information on agricultural water use that would help drive our research agenda moving forward and help establish some extension priorities that we can push forward.
I thought we knew how much water agriculture uses in the state.
We have a good idea of the volume of water from surface and groundwater that's withdrawn for large agricultural operations. In other words, the threshold that's reported right now to Department of Health and Environmental Control is for withdrawals that are greater than 3 million gallons a month. What we don't have any information on are those producers and growers that withdraw less than that volume. And so the survey set out to try to get an idea of how many of those growers there were that were out there, and then what their water use practices are. And so not just the volume, but what kind of technologies were they looking at? What kind of irrigation equipment were they using? What were they powering that equipment with? So there was a lot of information that we wanted to be able to try to get.
When did the survey start?
We launched the survey in March of 2018, so just a few months ago, and then the active data collection for the survey was concluded in late July. So it's taken us a good deal of time to be able to assemble the data, do a preliminary analysis of the data, and be able to identify right now where the gaps are so that we can make some inferential statistical analysis and be able to look at not just the small subgroup that we have, but also the larger population, and again, infer some things about that data.
Are we partnering with other state agencies in this project?
The survey tool was reviewed by our partners at the Department of Health and Environmental Control and the Department of Natural Resources. And then we have also had our stakeholders and partners. We've had farmers review it. We've had the Farm Bureau review it, the Palmetto Agribusiness Council. So our large partners have certainly had a hand in it. The execution of the survey was all done by the Extension Service.
So talk a little bit about how the survey was conducted.
The survey instrument was designed by a team of researchers and extension agents, but really the boots on the ground were the extension agents, and they represented the 5 different program teams: agronomy, horticulture, natural resources, livestock, and agribusiness. So there were a lot of hands at the wheel here, and so the tool was designed so that the agents would have something to go out and interact directly with the producers on their farms and collect the information.
There's been a lot of talk at the conference. There was a panel of legislators this morning who talked about the need for data-driven, fact-based, science-based information in order to sort of form the future policies and legislation around water in the state of South Carolina. Talk about how this is part of that effort.
That's the way it's supposed to work. When the General Assembly has a question, they develop the regulations, they develop the laws that will help address a public resource like water. So all of us have an interest in water, but there are a smaller number of water users. So the General Assembly, when they're debating a law, they need to have the most accurate information about that natural resource. That natural resource is changing all the time. Recharge rates for aquifers are changing, volumes are changing in rivers daily. And so they need to be able to respond to long-term data trends and be able to make their decisions based on the most accurate information that's available.
So you're measuring below 3 million gallons per month, is that right?
We're collecting information on users that irrigate below that threshold, yes.
So do we know how many of those users exist in the state?
We don't at this point. This is our first step. So this is the initial phase of the first agricultural water use survey. We anticipate, we have not determined exactly how frequently we are going to do this. It may be every 3 years, it may be every 5 years, but this is something that's going to go on over time. So I do not believe we may never capture every single user, production scale user that is below that threshold. But again, that's where those statistics become so important. If we can get a subset of the population, we can begin to still determine how much water is being withdrawn.
I think it's difficult for people to conceptualize what 3 million gallons per month is, like the size of farming operation that uses that amount of water.
3 million gallons a month is a lot. When you look at 3 million gallons, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. If you take a 10-acre farm, let's say a 10-acre strawberry farm, if you are irrigating at around 4 inches of that per month over those 10 acres, then you are going to go over that 3 million gallons a month. So it sounds like a lot of water, and it is something that we need to be able to track. But the agricultural industry is $41.7 billion. There are 98,000 jobs that are associated with it. And agriculture has a well-deserved seat at the table when there's a broader discussion of any water use.
But when we're talking about 3 million gallons a month, I think a lot of people think of what we've heard in the news a lot about mega farms, but what we're really talking about is maybe organic growers or smaller family farm type.
Sure, if you have a high value crop, a high economic value crop, what irrigation does is it minimizes the risk for the crop yield associated with droughts or prolonged period of dry. So the higher value of the crop, the more likely you're going to see irrigation. So with the increase in ornamentals, niche crops, high dollar crops, we're going to see an increase in irrigation. So it is essential for us to get out in front of this in terms of understanding what those water uses are, how the water's applied. Again, we can make advances in efficiency, and if we apply those advances in efficiency across the entire state, then we can really have a significant decrease or a significant effect on how much water is applied.
And finally, Clemson is the state's primary land-grant university. What expertise do we have that enable us to do this study, and why do you think it's important for Clemson to be doing this study?
Clemson has, again, expertise in agronomy, expertise in horticulture, expertise in agribusiness. There are folks that work with water like me, and irrigation crosses all of those thresholds. And so it is essential for us, for Clemson, to have a seat at that table, because the research priorities of all of these individual researchers can be pulled together. The benefit of having those researchers clustered together in the same organization is not something that would exist at DHEC or DNR or any sister agency that we have. So we have, again, a very well-deserved leadership role in that arena.
Great. And the last question I'll ask you is the importance of this conference. Clemson sponsors and hosts this conference every other year. It brings together a lot of experts in water policy, water research. What do you think is the importance of having a conference like this? I
look forward to a couple of different conferences that I go to on a regular basis. But this is the conference that I look forward to the most, because I get to interact with my agency partners, my agency colleagues. I get to interact with other university researchers who are interested in the same thing. This collection of individuals that are doing water research and willing to share their data and information and findings with others, and assembling that in one place is so important to, again, help drive the policies forward, so that those legislators that were on the panel this morning can have the most up-to-date information when they make some really tough decisions. Mm-hmm. Clemson has been the catalyst for this conference and the organizer for this conference. And this is the 10th year, and I've been to every single conference, 6th conference. It is, you know, a terrific undertaking. Couldn't be done without the planning committee and all the wonderful, dedicated folks that serve on that planning committee that represent all those organizations that I mentioned earlier. But Clemson deserves a pat on the back for organizing and making this happen year after year.
Great.
Every other year.
Great. Thanks for your time. Enjoy the rest of the conference and good luck with your research.
Thank you, John.
All right.